have a little bit of a problem here with the main ignition switch. I have a key, but I don't know if it's the key that was for that bike. I don't see any traces of blue paint on it, so I really don't know where I got it. It's a hella key. Here's another key, and this one says CEV on it. That's Italian. That's an Italian made that they went to later in, I don't know, 67, 68, something like that. You'll notice the length of this stud that goes in there is a bit different on the Italian headlight system. So I think this key is probably similar to the one that came out of it, if not the one. It doesn't appear that they have any method for making it so you couldn't steal the bike or something. It has little undercuts in it where there's some little balls that snap in there. You can see, I think you can see anyways down in there, there's a couple of little steel balls that snap onto these grooves and hold this key in there. The key has a flat here which drives, if you push it in there, it drives the whole assembly to turn it back and forth. It swivels and makes these contacts here go between here and here. And I don't think I'm the first one to take this apart, and I think maybe somebody didn't put this together right, because if you put this in the opposite way, you effectively stop it from doing anything, because there's a stop here and a stop here, and it can't turn one way or the other. The flats in here are what this key assembly drives. That engages in there, and then it turns back and forth to turn the ignition on and off and the headlight on and off. Its method for turning on the ignition is by pushing the key in. This is a little, right here on the end is a little, I'll call it a carbon slug. And when you put that key in, that slug comes out of there. If I pull the key out of there, wait a minute, like so, everything needs lubricated up here. But you can see that little carbon brush or slug goes back in that hole. And what it does when it comes out is it pushes on those little metal pieces there to put them together to engage contacts to turn on the ignition. So when you push down on this, it's going to turn on the ignition, and probably the generator light would be my guess will come on. And to get this apart, because this thing here, like I say, if you put it in that way, would be blocked. I think somebody maybe put it together that way, because I couldn't turn the ignition switch. This key would go in there, but you couldn't rotate it either way. And the guy told me it didn't run when I bought it. Now, this thing, I should show here, this engages in here, these flats on that little washer there, but it has a spring in there. And the spring pushes this key lock and holds it tight against this cover. And of course the cover is connected with a wire here on this connection. The cover I got off of there simply by bending these metal tabs back. There's two of them that kind of go in from the sides, and these two fit through slots in here. And these are where the other tabs go on. So once you get these loose and bend them back a little bit, you can take this cover right off there. So this is actually an electrical connection, this little lock thing here. But everything's all gooed up. You can see it's got terrible grease and stuff all over it. And like I say, I don't think I'm the first one to be in here, which is, if this was put together wrong, that may be it. I couldn't tell it for sure it was, because when it come apart, everything, I wasn't expecting this spring to come out of there. So everything kind of went sprawling. And then I had to figure out how it worked. But it seems simple enough, but it's just so dirty. So I'm going to have to put this in some lacquer thinner, and I'll probably clean all these parts up, especially this thing. This doesn't work too well. It's kind of gooed up inside. Real thick, like greasy stuff on there. And I'm going to clean it up with some lacquer thinner to get these metal pieces nice and shiny. I might even put it in the blast cabinet. Since I have a bead blast cabinet, I'm going to maybe blast it just real lightly to clean that up. Make sure it's real clean on there. And this part too. So it makes good contact. But I'm going to see if I can't fix it. Now, these things sticking out the sides were for little indicator lights that went in there. And when this is in the bike, this light is underneath those indicators on the top of the headlight. But I don't plan on using these. I've got some 6-volt LEDs that I thought I might put in there, which might take a little bit less juice and be a little bit more modern, and put them in for indicator lights. It's either that or get rid of this whole thing, the key switch and everything, and just put a different kind of switch in there that has some different positions on it. You know, you can buy double throw, double pole switches, and you know, maybe make it with just a switch you throw to turn on the ignition. But I'd like to keep it original if I could, because this thing here is supposed to go on here. When you put the key in, you know, it would look something like that, I think. And so I'd like to keep it original if I can. A lot of this is designed not to keep out water and stuff. This cover where it pulls up against the headlight, because this is what mounts the whole thing in the headlight, I found a dash 0118 O-ring, and I got it in EPDM here, and I'm going to put that over there so it pulls up and seals out the water. They had, or maybe somebody had put some sort of a gooey black stuff in there to seal it, but I think the O-ring will do a better job of it. But anyways, getting this off isn't too bad, and at least this way you can see what you're up against. If you take this apart, you'll notice there's numbers here which correspond to the wiring diagram that apparently are kind of a universal code. The only thing I see written in the clear is this one. This one says horn right on there. A horn goes there. So it's just a matter of wiring it up. But I'll get to that. I'll cross that bridge once I get the switch working. That's the first thing to get done. And this one didn't work. And I got a feeling that's why it didn't run. They couldn't get it started because they couldn't turn any kind of a key in there. So I think I can fix that though. But these contacts down in this hole here, these little pieces of metal, that's all got to be cleaned up and working right. So first, maybe with lacquer thinner or gasoline, and then I might blast it. And I know this is the original switch because you can still see some blue paint on there. But that's a project now. That looks a lot better. I could use gasoline or maybe some lacquer thinner on there, but you do want to be careful of fire when you're doing this. I'm starting out here with just a little bit of naphtha because it won't take paint off or anything like that, and I don't think it'll hurt any kind of plastic, although it is still flammable, so you want to be careful of sparks. I got a fire extinguisher over there to help me just in case when I'm cleaning parts something goes wrong. But and I also have a wash-up sink right handy too that I can turn on real quick. So I'd say that's pretty good. I think maybe I could blast it. Now, of course, I wouldn't want to blast something like this because it doesn't appear that this is going to open up. And sand might get in there and tend to make it a little tough to operate. So I think I will get that little carbon out of there. I certainly wouldn't, but I won't do any blasting of these pieces. This thing here has just got to be done with a little bit of solvent, I think, and see if I can't get it freed up a little bit. It's pretty hard to get solvent inside it, but and also I think the idea of this was when it rained, there could be water going down through here, so that's why they wanted it sealed. So I got those, I don't know if you can see it or not in there, but I got those two little balls in there. Okay, I think, I don't know how close I could get that and still focus on it. Well, that's not too bad. So this has to go in there, and I do see people selling just this part on eBay, used ones, you know. What I've done is I've tried to dry that solvent on there, which in this case I used naphtha is what I was using. I could have used gasoline, I guess, but I blew it off with the air hose just to get that off there so it doesn't contaminate my blast cabinet. And I cleaned the parts in it and then just blew it off with an air hose. Now the next thing I'm going to do is turn the pressure on the blast cabinet way down. I'm turning it down to 50 psi, which is about half what I normally run it. And because I don't want it to blast off more of this plastic than I can help. It's Bakelite, which is kind of an early form of plastic, and it might not hold up too good. That's why you got to be kind of careful of solvents and stuff too. You don't know what's going to happen. I do have another switch off of a parts bike that I could use if I mess this one up. Parts bikes are invaluable. I just blasted it and blew it off with the air hose, so it's nice and clean now. These contacts are good on this part. You can see what they look like on here. However, there is something else wrong with it, which I don't know if you can see it or not, but it is visible in this picture that you're seeing. And that is on this thing right here. There's a little crack in this. This is plastic, which apparently insulates, you know, the lock that turns. This fits in there like so, but that insulates this from this. I'm not sure why. When I get to looking at it, I'll probably find out. But what's wrong is there's a little crack in there. So I think I'm going to see if I can't super glue that just to make sure it doesn't get any worse. I mean, it'd be possible to make another one of these, but why do it if you don't have to? I'm sure I got a piece of plastic around here somewhere I could make one, but I'm going to see if I can't kind of glue this before it actually gets bad. So, and these things for the indicator lights, I think maybe I'm going to get a Dremel tool and cut these off. Because I don't think I need them. They take up a lot of space in there, and in the headlights, kind of a tight place anyway. So I'm going to see if I can't just eliminate these things and go with the LED lights for an indicator. I've got this plastic I put in there with a little bit of super glue. The reason it's black, you see black a lot of times, super glue is clear. This has ground up rubber in it, which makes it a little bit more flexible than regular super glue. But I don't think that'll come out of there again, and that apparently is an insulator for this. Really, it's a little contactor, just made in a triangle, but they had it in there backwards. If you put it in there backwards, it won't move, your key won't turn, and I think that's what their problem was. They told me when I bought that bike, now this is 35, 40 years ago, but they told me it didn't run, and that's probably why. There's my little carbon. What I'm going to do next is, if you take this little ring off here, you'll see there's a spring here and here. Those are the springs for those little steel balls that are down inside there, which maybe you can see, I'm not sure. Anyways, those little balls, they engage these grooves on the key. When it's all the way down in there, it would engage in this top groove, and if you want to shut the engine off, you'd pull up on the key till it goes into this groove, in which case it would just spin around and not do anything, and of course the engine would stop because it's not pushing this carbon down in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of this Sil Glide here. It's a silicone grease That's a Napa trade name. I get it at the Napa store. But it comes in handy for something like this where you don't want to use a mineral type grease or something that's going to kind of crap it up. Because this will repel moisture. It repels water and probably be a little less apt to give trouble in here. But I'm just going to put a little bit around this outside of this thing here where it rotates, mostly because I don't know for sure, I haven't put this back together yet, but I'm pretty sure that this little metal thing that goes on here, it's supposed to rotate inside that, kind of like a little bearing. And the reason I think that is I think it gets clamped against here, against this metal can, which kind of keeps it from turning. And just the inside part's supposed to turn, I think. I could be wrong on that, but that's how I think it's supposed to work. But I think I'm about ready to put it together. I'll put a little bit of silicone grease in here so that this thing will rotate pretty smoothly. And of course this spring is what holds the whole works down on there, so that when you rotate it, the spring is holding this contactor down against these contacts. And I will mark probably with a paint dot or something. This is a contact here, and of course where these rivets are would be connected to this piece. So this is the other one here when it rotates, and it goes to different positions, I guess, because if you put it in there and it goes this way, it makes contact between here and these two, or between here and these two. So I'll mark those so I know what they do, which may help me when I go to put this back together. If you're wondering how I got this back together, I clamped this cover on there because there's a spring in there. I clamped the cover in a vise, in a bench vise, between here and this side, and then I used a punch to bend that over. Now I got it stuck good enough. See, both of these are bent over a little bit, and it's stuck on there good enough that I can use a punch and a hammer, I think, to drive that down flat, and then I'll have gotten it back together. Let's hope it works. I've got these color codes on here. So this one puts in common these two, or if you turn the switch the other way, these two. If it's in the middle like it is now, whatever it is off. The ignition, I think, is on. This turns on the ignition here when you push that key in there. So you can turn it this way or this way. And I believe it's supposed to be for like parking lights. If you turn it one way, it leaves a tail light on or something. And then if you turn it the other way, you get headlight. I think that's how they're supposed to work, but I don't really know for sure. The keys, if I can get it out of there we go. The keys, I believe, are all the same. From the way this is made, I'd say there's only one key that's going to work on this thing, and it'd work on all of them. Anybody that has an Allstate Puch, one key will fit another. I don't think there's any difference on that, as long as it's a hella switch. Now if you get to the later ones that use a key like that, of course, it's going to be different.